And good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tigers Tonight. I'm your host, John Maddox, joined as always by the best co-host in all the land. We'll start with our Northern Branch office. Bryan, how in the world are you up north?
Not too bad. Feeling a lot better after the W, so that's always a good thing.
And then from the palatial Marley Manor in Marley Estates in beautiful scenic crime-free Hernando, Mississippi, Larry, how in the world are you this evening?
Well, obviously, as Bryan just said, after a win, you always are better. And last week was actually really good for me because my high school team that I was pulling for won, and then the Tigers won, and then the Saints beat the Falcons, who obviously cannot hold a lead. We know 28-3. Anyway, so, it just was a good week football-wise for the CTG.
It was a good week. By the way, Saints fans, and who else was it that I was disparaging? The Colts. Both kind of have me to think, because I made that tweet about the Colts and the Saints and checking on my friends. And after that, it was all Colts and all Saints. So you guys are welcome. By the way, just a couple of NFL notes that I just found were crazy, and then we'll get in the show. There were 10 missed field goals in the fourth quarter of games this weekend. 10, including the most ridiculous game I've ever seen, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. And the AFC South is like the second division in the history of divisions that all teams played and nobody won, including two of them played each other. Let's go figure that out. But anyway, let's get into the Tigers and Navy. It was Memphis victorious on Saturday. Up in Annapolis, and the final score was 37-13. And Larry, this was a game that Memphis kind of dominated from start to finish, and then I thought they did a really good job of just keeping their foot on them and just kind of ground them into the ground.
Yeah, and this was a game. This was the first time we were kind of talking off air. This was the first time in a long, long time where I wouldn't say the game was never in doubt, but there was never really a time when we were like, we could really seriously lose this game. Memphis got the opening kickoff, go straight down the field, scored a touchdown, and then we got the scored. Then we kicked the field goal. I think it was 10-7. I think was the closest it got, and then Memphis, of course, made it 13 and then 20. And then once it was 20-7, I think the closest they got after that was 23-13. John, this was a to me, look, let's be very clear. Navy is the worst team in the AAC. I think we'd all agree on that more than likely. It's, one of the two worst teams in the AAC for sure. And so let's not put too much into this win, but at the same time, I thought we saw some really, really, really good things, especially defensively.
Bryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I thought, even last week's show, I thought Memphis would win 37-21. I think I believe I said it would end up being 37-13. I knew Memphis could come out and score points, so it was good to see. I still have my concerns with the run blocking. With this Navy defense, you only get 91, I think, rushing yards. But passing wise, it was fantastic. Yeah, Seth Hennigan over 400 yards. I think it was at the third one of his career. He had 71% completion percentage. So, good day offensively, except for the run. I still have some concerns there.
And one thing that kind of stuck out to me, how nice is it to have a kicker? Chris Howard went 7 for 7, 4 extra points and 3 field goals. We didn't ask him, now to be fair, we didn't ask him to kick 50 and 62-yard field goals. But, to me, the thing about a kicker is just doing your job. I just read that stat that, there were 10 missed field goals in the fourth quarter and of the NFL this weekend. And those are the pros. Like, those are the guys that get paid to do this. But I just thought it was a good all-around effort. Larry and I go back and forth about this whole playing Navy on defense thing. it's easy and difficult all at the same time, right? Because it's easy because all you have to do is line up and play assignment football, but it's hard because Navy, let me see, I didn't count their plays, but Navy, they had one drive. They had let's see, what was it? 69 plays. And I thought that was, very telling for Navy because Navy had that 121 play drive. And look, there have been times that Memphis has played Navy and they've had 3 of those in the middle of a game. And Memphis just let them have that one, and then Navy got the big play over the top, which was just a flat out missed assignment. The linebacker slid out and was supposed to run with fullback and didn't, and got burned. He almost dropped the ball because it wasn't a great pass. Boy, I said this to Mike last week. Like, I am just shocked at how bad Navy has looked. Like, they had 4 or 5 plays again this week, guys, where they just bumped into each other. Like, they had 8 turnovers all of last year, and they're at 7. 3 games in or 2 games in? I forget how many they've played. Like, I'm just stunned. But, Brian, it's like you always say, a win is a win is a win, and we will take it.
Definitely. And, and this is a game that, obviously Memphis, I didn't say needed to win convincingly, but it did need to win, and they got it done. It's one that they should have won, and it's good to see them go out there and dominate the way they did, especially on the passing game. I loved the execution. We talked off air about the play calling. I don't think there was an issue with play calling at all. Any point during the game where I was like, I don't know if I would have done that. So, play calling on both sides of the ball to me was fantastic. And, overall, just, it was a good win for Memphis. Like I said, the only thing that, I would look at is the run blocking. You're going to need the running game this year. And, it just 2 games in a row now where the running game just didn't, live up to par.
And Jeb brings up a great point. When Quindell made that interception, and y'all, if you haven't seen it, go look it up on YouTube. It was a great play all the way around.
Well, you'll see it because we'll play the highlights, right?
Oh, there you go. So you'll see it in a minute, and Duncan makes his first appearance of the show. But it was just such a good play all the way around. Not only, Larry, did he make a great catch, but he played that as a safety. Absolutely, you can't play deep in safety any better than that.
So that was a trick play where obviously the goal was to bring, and I believe that was a halfback that threw that, if I'm not incorrect. And the goal was to sort of suck the safety in, thinking it's going to be a run, right? He's coming up for run support, and then you leak someone behind him. And Quindell sort of played middle of the field. And this gets back to how physical we were playing defensively, right? And then Quindell plays that over the top to make sure that the player is not going to be able to sneak behind him. If you see what he actually did, and you're right, Johnny, he played it perfect. He actually played behind the man and then kind of jumped up over him and caught it with one hand, which I know all of us could do. All of us have that athletic ability, but that was a great play. And I thought he made sure that if he didn't catch it, the play was not going to be made. And that's what you do as a safety. You make sure that you may not get the interception, but you make sure that the offensive player does not.
As our old friend Tony Graves used to say, deepest of the deep. That's your job as safety in that situation. And it was a great, athletic play, obviously, but, I just, that shows that you've watched film and paid attention. Like, that's what that shows. That, that was not, the pitch man was not Quindell's man. That was one of the linebackers. I forget which side it was, but I think it was Evans. That's his man. That's his responsibility. How many times in the past have we played Navy and you look up and the safety has bitten on the either the halfback pass or the dive, and he gets behind the defense and scores an easy touchdown? And that is the danger of playing Navy. Athletically, it's not a problem. It is having that discipline to do the same thing 69 nice straight times. And that is the problem you get when you play Navy is just having that. It's like shooting free throws. It's why guys get tired of shooting free throws. It's just doing the same thing every damn time, and it gets old. But Bryan, that's what you have to do. What was your one big takeaway in a positive from the game?
The one big positive for me is the wide receiving core. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and watch again. I don't remember a drop pass. So to me, that was very encouraging. And you take a look at it. Javon Ivory had 7 catches, 89 yards. Gabe Rogers, 5 catches, 95 yards. Definitely. And then Skates, he only had 1 catch, but it was a big one for 79 yards, and we'll see that in the highlights. So to me, it just finally the wide receivers. Because it was completely different from game one. I think all of us were on the wide receivers with the drop passes, and completely different against Navy. They worked on it, and like I said, I don't remember a drop pass. So kudos to the wide receivers.
Larry, what's your big takeaway?
I thought the physicality of the defense, and we talked about this off air, was how physical Memphis was with the Navy team. For years, Navy would just out physical us and out execute us, and we just would not allow them the space they wanted. We cut off their angles, and we tackled. I don't remember that many missed tackles, guys. I really don't. It was the one on the quarterback, but in reality, we tackled well. We were very physical. And other than the one trick play where they got behind us in the one drive, guys, we really controlled the line of scrimmage, which, again, I don't want to make more out of this than it is, because it is Navy. And I know those young men are fantastic young men, and they really are. But we're a much better football team. And I don't want to make more out of this than it was. But it was great to see us be a lot better than somebody and really execute it that way. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. That's what I talked about earlier with putting your foot on their neck and just keeping the pressure there. And, Memphis they scored in every quarter, and they just eventually got to, they ended up with 99 rushing yards, which, you look at that and go, oh, that's great. Well, a lot of that came on the last couple drives where Navy was just exhausted. They couldn't keep up, and the game was out of hand. But I agree. It was good to just see Memphis really throttle someone, even if the score didn't quite indicate that we throttled them. But we won that. I think, Larry, you hit the nail on the head earlier. There was no point in that game where I'm like, oh, this could still get away from us. And especially coming out in the second half. The first play of the second half, he goes deep to Skates, gets the touchdown, and then it's, I think that and Quindell's interception it broke their backs. They just couldn't. They knew at that point. They just couldn't do it. They just decided, you know what, live to play another day. So the Tigers pick up a big win, and, now you start looking ahead. This weird schedule, you step into conference, you step out of conference, and now you're going to play a non-conference opponent that is very familiar, that we'll talk more about here in a minute. But Navy, I'm still stunned. I've never seen. They've never been the most athletic lot. They've never been the most. I don't know what you want to call it. The most. In
the backfield.
Sorry, we're trying to play some highlights here, and I'm trying to mute. There we go. So they've never been the most athletic lot. But you watch that play. Gabe's over the top. That's just. Bryan, that's just coaching. That's knowing where you have an advantage and then taking an advantage of it.
Yeah, everything. Just like the pass blocking, it has been phenomenal to me in this game as well. Well, even in last game, the pass blocking I thought was decent. I know it was a tougher opponent, but here, and here's Quindell's interception. It just. Fantastic.
So if you look at that, you see what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually behind the player, so there was no scenario where the play that the offensive player was not going to catch the ball. The only person that was going to catch it was Quindell, and that's exactly what a safety should do. Sorry.
Now and
No,
then,
you're good.
you look and Memphis comes out first play of the second half, and they get Skates over the top because just the opposite of Quindell, they were late. The safeties late rotating over. So now you have actually at the corner on that defense was late. So you've got a safety on Joe Skates, and that's a mismatch every time. And I thought right there that was another great play call, the little quick out to Ivory. And Bryan, we have this running joke, right, about, you love the screen pass, and we don't see it nearly enough. But I just thought Memphis executed a great game plan. Here's the screen we were talking
there's that
about.
Screen right there.
And man, as the coaches say, Ducker's got some wiggle to him, doesn't he?
I'll tell you, the only spot of this game I was unhappy with was we scored the long touchdown pass to Skates, got the fumble on the next series, drove down to like the 2, and then had 2. I don't think there was a procedure penalty, and it pushed us back, and we ended up having to kick a field goal. Guys, against a good team, we can't do that. Against a good team, when you get 20 to you're up 20 to 10 or 7 or whatever we were up, and you get that ball back, you got to score and make it 27-7. I mean, if you're playing Houston, you can't do that. That's what I'm saying. That's the only concern I had right there was, and we didn't talk about this too much. We did have quite a few offensive line procedure penalties that just, and not all of them was offensive line. Some of it was the wide receivers too. But we had way too many procedure penalties in this game.
8 penalties for 59 yards, and that's not a recipe for success for Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Luke Matheson from RedWolfReport.com will join us, and we will start breaking down Memphis and Arkansas State, which comes your way Saturday from the Liberty Bowl. You're listening to Tigers Tonight. Looking to get away from it all? Hey, it's John here with Tropical Getaways Travel. And when I'm not following the Tigers, I help families and groups have their next amazing vacation. Maybe you're looking for a cruise, or maybe it's an all-inclusive resort that you've been dreaming of. Either way, I can help you plan a vacation that fits your budget and your lifestyle. When you're ready to start planning that vacation, give me a call at 901-667-8747. That's 901-667-8747. Or you can visit my website at tropicalgetaways.net. Let's start planning your next amazing vacation. So dreamy. I clicked the wrong button. I didn't mean to play that dreamy of music. Welcome back to the show, everyone. John Maddox, joined as always by Larry Marley and Brian Moss. And we now have the pleasure of welcoming in Luke Matheson. Luke, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Excellent. So let's just start right off the top. Arkansas State coming off a tough loss that pretty much a lot of teams have gone to Columbus and kind of felt that pain. They fall to Ohio State 45-12 on Saturday. But Luke, were there any positives that you could really take away from that game?
There's a lot of positives when you look at last year. Last year was just, let's be honest, last year it was a disaster and just a complete rebuild for Butch Jones and his staff. And, in his press conference today, he talked about how, in that first half, they were able to keep it respectable. And, you want to see a little bit more in the second half. They kind of gave it away there. And, Ohio State does what Ohio State does. Any good team would do in that situation, come out in the third quarter and put an end to it in a game like that. And, but they were able to keep their composure and get out of the big things. They got out of that game healthy. And that was, you look at a game like that, that's really one thing you're really concerned about when you're a group of 5 Sun Belt school playing, against a team that's got a chance to play for a national title potentially. You want to make sure you get out of those games healthy.
Talk about James Blackman, his progression from last year to this year. What have you seen so far, and what are you expecting this year from him?
Just a night and day difference out of James Blackman. Last year he battled with Lane Hatcher, kind of a 2 quarterback system thing going on, and eventually, he just kind of disappeared. He had some off the field things that happened, and that kind of played into a lot of the things that happened last year. Now, fast forward, he comes back. Lane Hatcher has transferred to Texas State, and James Blackman is the man. And he, he looked better in spring and in fall, and even early on in these games, especially the Grambling State game. He looked better than I've seen him look since he's come to Arkansas State from Florida State. And, that Grambling game, that was a game they did what they should have done. And the big thing I keep telling people is, look, this team last year, they couldn't do that. They played a FCS team last year and barely won that thing. And this year they did what they should have done in that game.
So last year, the defense, let's say it for what it was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was.
I think we're being kind here. What are we going to see? What are they going to do better this year? Because clearly coverage and run defense was an issue last year. So what are we going to see that they're going to do better?
They have completely revamped that defense. And, of course, the transfer portal helped along with that. Got several Power 5 guys that are on that defensive line. You got some guys in the secondary now that are there that were not there last year. There's a couple guys. Sammy Johnson made a couple big plays against Memphis last year. He will return. You got a couple of other guys that will return as well. And so that's the big thing is, you're absolutely right. That defense, calling that defense horrible would be a slap in the face to a horrible defense. And so that was a big emphasis this year, was making sure that in the recruiting and in the transfer portal, they went out and found pieces that they could get to fit into those spots. And that's exactly what they did. I think it's, I don't know that this is, just going to be a world beater defense by any means, but it's going to be significantly better than what Arkansas State had last year.
The guys kind of roll their eyes when I start asking this question, but talk a little bit about special teams. It's something Memphis obviously struggled with last year. We had a punter kicking field goals, but you've got Dominic Zveda and Tristan Matheson has put every kickoff into the end zone. That's something that also improves. I think Memphis had a couple big kickoff returns last year too. So talk a little bit about the special teams.
Yeah, and having those two guys back again this year is definitely big. And so the one thing you're talking about special teams, Butch Jones mentioned today in his press conference, Memphis likes to bring pressure. That's going to be a big emphasis that they're going to have in the punt game this year. If I remember correctly, I think they got to a punt last year and blocked a punt against Arkansas State. And so that's going to be an emphasis there. They got a couple of quick guys in punt return team and kick return team that can take it to the house and have done so. And so that's something, that Memphis will have to look out for. And then as far as defensively for Arkansas State on kick returns and punt returns, a lot of that same thing I just mentioned about the defense, fitting new guys in off the transfer portal, new guys in out of the recruiting classes that have stepped up. That's where you're going to see a little bit of a difference there. And defense and special teams was a huge, huge project for this coaching staff coming into this job and into the offseason.
How is the Arkansas State fan base taking to Butch Jones? I know last year wasn't the year that State fans would have liked, but how's it going this year? With his relationship with the fans, are they coming around to him?
The majority of the fans that I speak with, especially the ones that understand football, and I think you guys are going to understand what I mean when I say when they understand football. They understand that when Butch Jones took the job that recruiting classes had suffered. And I do not blame Blake Anderson for that. Blake Anderson, of course, has moved on to Utah State. But the honest truth is that when Blake Anderson's wife went through her issues and ultimately passed away, Blake quit recruiting. At that same time, he lost Brian Early, one of his best recruiters, to Houston. He lost Joe Coughlin, one of his best recruiters, to Houston. He lost Trooper Taylor to Duke. So he lost his three best recruiters at the same exact time to other schools, and it suffered. And I was sitting there last year looking when they barely beat UCA and in-state FCS team. I got to look, and I was going back looking at the recruiting rankings and the recruiting classes, and there were several guys that had signed. Matter of fact, I'm going to be honest with you, it was 42 players. There were 42 players that their best offer was Arkansas State, and other than that, they were FCS and D2. And that showed up last year. And that is why they hit the transfer portal so hard. And that is why they made such a big deal out of having the number one signing class in the Sun Belt. And a lot of fans have understood that. Like, look, we realize, Blake Anderson did not have a winning season his last year at Arkansas State. So it kind of reared its head there. It just got even uglier last year. And that's what I went back to saying about Grambling State when they throttled Grambling State. Fans took that as a positive because, again, you should throttle Grambling State, but last year's team couldn't have done that.
Talk to me about Champ Fleming, former Oregon State and wide receiver, and he has been putting up Tecmo Bowl numbers basically from the time he walked on campus. What about this young man? And for those photographers who don't know, he's wide receiver, former Oregon State wide receiver, and now this is his second year, correct, with you guys? He just lit us up last year, right? I mean, just was running all over us. So what is it about this young man that Tiger fans should look forward to seeing on Saturday?
He's got what I just simply call the it factor. He's a playmaker. He's going to find a way. He's quick, he's shifty, and he gives people fits because of that. And he's going to be a major target offensively for Arkansas State. And right now he has to be. The main receiver, Valence Hunt, is out with an injury. He is back on the practice field. Butch Jones said today that he is day-to-day and will be a game-time decision. But Valence is their big guy on the edge, and if they're going to throw the deep ball, it's probably going to be to him. And he's been out. So Champ Fleming, even though he's that smaller type receiver, he's had to step up and be utilizing as the main receiver the past few weeks, and he's done a pretty good job at it.
One more question before we pose the ultimate question to you. This summer, everybody knows conference realignment. How weird is it to the Arkansas State fan base that suddenly the Sun Belt has kind of separated themselves and flipped from what, kind of the perception of, well, CUSA is still better than the Sun Belt. And this summer, when teams willingly left CUSA to join the Sun Belt, how do the fans kind of feel about that? And of course, last week App State goes and gets their big win. But what's kind of the mood around that and the whole flip?
I got to be honest with you. For a couple of years now, those of us as reporters that covered the Sun Belt and even fans of the Sun Belt, we have honestly felt that the perception was wrong. We felt the Sun Belt was better. And a lot of that, is a little bit from, recruiting rankings to bowl game success, teams beating Power 5 schools. 2 years ago, Blake Anderson and Arkansas State beat Kansas State. And so, Arkansas State's had a piece of that. And several teams have gone and done that from the Sun Belt. And we felt Arkansas State. We felt the Sun Belt had a better TV deal. The conference receives more money from that TV deal than what Conference USA and a couple of the publishers from Rivals that I talked to that have websites that cover the former Conference USA schools. That was one big thing they talked about, was how much better that TV deal was. And let's be honest, when they went out there and grabbed those Conference USA teams, they got some really good Conference USA teams in multiple sports, not just football. You got some, baseball has gotten a lot better with these additions. Basketball's gotten better with these additions. And football, the App State thing did not surprise me. The Marshall thing did not surprise me. Of course, the Marshall thing helps the Sun Belt because this is their first year in there. The Georgia Southern did not surprise me. There are some loaded teams, and I was actually listening to a interview with Nick Saban earlier, and that's why he talked about the group of fives. He's like, look, they're still Division I players, and with the transfer portal now, you've got a lot of guys on a lot of these teams that have significant playing time in Power 5 conferences that are now playing for these group of fives. Not necessarily that it's leveling out, but it's making the group of fives more competitive.
One more big question before we let you go. What happens on Saturday?
I'm typically not the type to give like a score prediction or anything. I know last year's game was back and forth between Arkansas State and Memphis, and man, you guys ran all over. It's one of my Little Rock guys I used to cover on the high school side. Bryan, he ran all over us. Kind of as a guy that covers Arkansas State, it sucked to watch it from that aspect, but there's part of me that's proud for him because I knew him and covered him as he was growing up. I think the defense for Arkansas State is going to be better than what Memphis saw last year. But Arkansas State, Butch Jones realizes the challenges that come to playing a very big, very fast, very athletic Memphis. I think this will be a more competitive game than last year's game for sure.
Well, Luke, tell everybody how they can follow you and keep up with the Red Wolves this week.
Yeah, so obviously I'm the publisher of RedWolfReport.com on the Rivals.com network. You can follow me at Luke Matheson on Twitter or also at Red Wolf Report on Twitter. I post to both of those. And so we'll have some more stories, some more updates. I do have a website I shared with Bryan earlier, or a story link I shared with Bryan earlier that I believe he shared that had some comments from Butch Jones regarding Memphis from his press conference today.
Hey, Luke, thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us, and best of luck to the Red Wolves on Saturday.
Appreciate you guys, and it's great being on with you.
All right, thanks, Luke.
That's Luke Matheson from Red Wolf Report. And, so the Tigers are in on Saturday. They will, of course, face off with the Red Wolves. Larry, we'll start with you. What is kind of one of your keys for the game?
Well, we talked about a couple of these earlier, and one of them is running the football consistently. But more importantly to me is that we contain our penalties. We have to, when we have the ball and we have a drive going, you can't have one of those drive killing, get up to the line and you have a procedure penalty, because now all of a sudden now it's 1st and 15 and you're behind the sticks. We've got to limit that. To me, the two key things on offense: limit your penalties. On defense, let's limit their big plays. Last year we got burned a lot deep. We've got to limit their big plays, keep them in front of you, and don't let Blackman get one of those just crazy fourth quarters like he had last year.
And for me, it's two things. I need to see the Memphis run game, improve. I think Memphis is going to need a strong running game, against Arkansas State this year. And, and defensively, you got to limit, like Larry said, limit the big plays of Arkansas State. They average 7. I mean, they can kill you by the big plays, but they can also nickel and dime you to death. They average 78 plays per game. They average more time of possession than Memphis does so far this year, so that's an advantage to them. So yeah, Memphis is going to have to get after the quarterback, get some turnovers while holding on to the ball themselves.
1,360 yards, 168 plays. Memphis ran for 263 yards, 7.1 yards per carry. Arkansas State threw for 582 yards, 42 out of 66. Both teams had 5 touchdown passes, 12 punts in the game. That game was exhausting just sitting in the press box last year watching that. I mean, it was like the just kind of spin the wheel, name your score, and the Tigers got out of town 55-50. I don't really expect that score this year, if that makes sense. Like I just don't I just don't think either team has that kind of an outburst against a matched team. I mean, Memphis and Arkansas State aren't that. Memphis is definitely more athletic and probably are bigger and faster and stronger. All that's probably true, but this will be more of an even match than what Arkansas State came out of Saturday and versus Grambling State. This is a more even game, but I just don't think they can run with us. And that's just kind of what I keep going back to. And I don't mean the running game. I mean, obviously, I would take I'd take 137 yards out of the running game on Saturday. But I just think the difference is going to be our athleticism. But I don't see 55-50. Now, of course, that means it's going to be 72-65, but I don't see 50. But I'll be blunt. I didn't see that last year either. I thought it would be kind of a low-scoring game. It was an early game, kind of both teams feeling each other out. And next thing you know, it's Blackman's going nuts in the fourth quarter, but I just don't think the score is going to look the same.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think either team gets in the 50s. I think Memphis. Can they get to the 40s? I think they can. They have a better shot than Arkansas State, but I think this is going to be definitely lower scoring than last year. One thing we didn't talk about during the Navy reviewing the Navy game was the targeting on Zay Collins. Targeting call. I know Memphis is appealing that decision. I don't think we'll hear anything if they're unsuccessful. But if they're successful in their appeal, I think we'll hear something. But I think that comes into play because if Collins doesn't play in the first half, I think he was very, very active against Navy. And I think, he'll be active against Arkansas State. So if he's not there in the first half against Arkansas State, I think Arkansas State can get more points in the first half than the second half. Are we giving scores right now on what we're thinking?
We'll wait just a minute on that.
Oh, okay.
Zay Collins had 9 tackles before he went out of the game. And it's another one like it doesn't just what he did just doesn't all show up in the box score, right? I mean, he was active and kind of all over the place. But, I got to see the run game, Larry. I got to see it because I think you said this earlier, or maybe it was Brian. We're going to hit a point this season where we're going to have to run the damn football. And, we're going to be up late in the game, 31-27. We're going to get the ball on our own 25 and 3 minutes left. The other team's got 2 timeouts. We're going to have to move the football, and I think I texted you guys this on Saturday, or we just decide, Ryan Silverfield decides he's Mike Leach, and his idea of a running game is just throwing quick outs and screens. But it's going to have to be one or the other because we're going to have to be able to salt a game away at some point.
The trick is if you're going to run the football is to be not just physical, but their backs have to find the hole. The problem we've had the last couple of years has been that our running back, and I say this as a way of leading into, our running back has gone to the hole, and if there's no hole there, well, that's where I'm going. One of the things I saw at a Ducker was, and I saw this out of Martin too, like they would go there and then shift around and try to find. And also I think there's a little bit of lack of patience from some of our running backs, for the blocks to sort of develop. And I'm not blaming them because we clearly have some issues blocking up front. But you're right, John. The issue's going to come down to fourth quarter, 3 minutes to go. You're up by 2, and you gotta get 3 first downs to win that game. I mean, how are you going to do it? How are you going to get those 3 first downs? Because if you throw the football and it's incomplete, now the clock stops, right? So you want that clock moving. And so to your point, you're right. There's one of 2 ways. You run the football or you throw short passes. And that's really it. And look, this isn't mythical stuff. Guys, I don't know if the running game is a combination of
yes.
Okay.
All of the above that you're about to say. I think, it's offensive line, it's backs, it's scheme a little bit. Memphis can be a little predictable, Larry, in the run game sometimes. Yep. When we go heavy, we tend to always run when we're heavy.
Right. Instead, I'll tell you a great play. And this is back from the Mike Norvell era, but we're playing SMU in the great game that we had here, and we went heavy. And Antonio, now again, I know we don't have an Antonio Gibson on this team. I get that, but Antonio Gibson then splits out, and they do the little hitch and go, and that was all out of heavy that day. And that's one of the reasons why he was wide open was because the safeties were all on the other side of the field. But, I mean, you're right, John. You've got to just switch it up a little bit. But you're right. We are predictable. Again, 3 minutes to go. You're going to run the football. Everybody knows you're going to run the football. You got to run the football. period.
Yeah. And by the way, for those who don't know, our listeners are very smart. So you probably know heavy just means 2 tight ends. You come in kind of in a jump. It depends on your terminology. I think we call it heavy and other schools call it jumbo. Some schools call it big. Some schools call it fat. Like it's just whatever you want to call it. And it's kind of funny because now teams have expanded. Used to you'd go down on the goal line and you'd bring, one of your big defensive linemen in to block as a fullback, and you'd have 2 tight ends and you'd be in I formation. Well, now you're running heavy out of the spread. And, that lends itself to, if you run it every time, that lends itself to predictability, even if you're back in the shotgun. I did also want to bring up one other thing. I thought Seth was really good Saturday taking what the defense gave him. He seems much more confident, Brian, this year going, you know what? It's not there. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, I'm gone, versus standing back there and holding and holding and holding.
Yeah, he's talked about it. He's more comfortable this year. He's got a year underneath his belt, and next year, he's going to be even more comfortable. So, the progression of Seth Hennigan, and I think Silverfield talked about it. You see this kid, you see he's going to be special, and you already know, he's special. But the leadership, he's more vocal this year than he was last year, and I think that's all because he's comfortable. But I see him having a really good game, another good game against Arkansas State. But I go back to that running game. You really need to see that running game pick up.
Hey, one thing I want to add, I thought Seth did a great job of standing in the pocket, getting hit, and still delivering the ball in the face of the pressure, which is something last year, guys, he did not do. He would get, he's get happy feet. He did not get happy feet, even when Navy was sending everybody. I think they blitzed some people from Baltimore. They brought the house in a couple of times, and he stood in there. That 1 third down completion to Ivory across the middle, where he had a guy draped all over him. That was a great pass. We're seeing progress, and I know in the spring I said I didn't really see any growth from him. That's true, but clearly we're seeing physically he's a lot stronger.
Yeah, when the lights come on. Quick programming note, the game against North Texas is going to be, obviously, next weekend, a 2:30 kick on ESPN+. I think that's what Memphis wanted, but I just think in Memphis, in September and October, you play at 6, and in November, you play at 2:30. When you have a choice, I just think that's how it should be, but that's why I do a podcast, and I'm not over in the ALB making any decisions. Game will be this week on ESPN Plus. Richard Cross will have the play-by-play. I am not going to butcher the analyst's name. I honestly looked him up today because, I'll be blunt, I'd never heard of him, but he's a former NFL player. Laguerre Duzable, I think is how you say his name, but he will be the analyst. All right, Brian, we're going to start with you, put you on the spot. Game starts at 6 o'clock. These are 2 teams that like to throw it all over the field. So I'm going to go out on a limb and be very angry early, and I'm going to say at 9:54 p.m., the scoreboard will say.
To me, it will say Memphis 38, Arkansas State 24.
You're copying off Jeb's paper again, by the way. Larry, when you look at that scoreboard at 9:54, please, God, don't let it be 9:54. It will say.
It's going to say Memphis 41, Arkansas State 23. It's going to be a fairly close game until the fourth quarter. Tigers get a couple of late touchdowns and salt this one away. I think I'm agreeing with you, John. If you look at the speed, especially on the outside, our wide receivers, it's not that Arkansas State isn't fast. If you just look at the size of I went and looked at the size of their DBs. They're pretty small. I just don't see anybody can match up with Skates, Ivory, and Rogers.
I've got it 31-20. I don't think this Memphis team is built to get into the 40s and 50s. And I'll be honest, if it gets up into the 40s and 50s, I think Memphis is going to have some trouble because Blackman is a guy that can just make stuff happen when the world falls apart. He's just such a good athlete. He can make things happen. I think 31-20 sounds about right. I just don't think Arkansas State is going to be able to stay with us physically. I think that's going to be a challenge for them. But hey, this comes down, we've said it 100 times, if Memphis runs the ball, they win the game. And also, I am more confident about special teams coming into this game than I've probably been in a couple years, and I'll make a bold prediction. We get a big play out of the kicking game, whether it's a block field goal, block punt, or I'll call it Gabe Rogers is going to score a touchdown. He's going to return a kick for a touchdown. And I think this is the game to do it because, as we've talked about before, guys, when you get to playing, and I'm not trying to build Memphis up to be a juggernaut here, but when an AAC team is playing a Sun Belt team, and not that Memphis can't lose the game. I mean, they almost lost last year. But the difference doesn't show up in those first 22 guys. The difference really shows up in that second set of 22 guys. And, Bryan, that's where, Memphis, they play a lot of starters on special teams. But that's really where your depth shows up, and that's how these games are won and lost against these not quite evenly matched teams. I just think Memphis makes a big play in the special teams game.
Yeah, definitely. And the way Memphis has recruited, the Silverfield has recruited the past couple of years. The depth chart for Memphis is really stout. I mean, they're strong. With capable players that could, let's face it, they could start if they were playing for a couple of these Sun Belt teams. So, definitely the depth is there for Memphis. And yeah, I totally agree with you that that's where you're going to see it. Third, fourth quarters is where you'll definitely see Memphis pull away. We haven't talked about it. It's going to be the first home game. Any predictions on the attendance? It's a hard one.
35.
Yeah, I'm going to go 30 to 35. Although I will say this is one of those games where, it won't be as noticeable probably as the Memphis great crowd for Memphis that went to Navy last week. A huge, a relatively large throng of Memphis fans made that journey up and got some Jimmy's seafood. I didn't get any, but
it's awesome. It's just awesome.
Jimmy's is so good. Anyway, before I get distracted here, the crab cakes. Oh, anyway, back to the fans. I think even though Arkansas State will bring a good contingent, I just don't know if Arkansas State and Memphis kind of pulls that cachet that you need. Like, I don't know that Memphis fans treat this as a big of a game. Right? We talk about this all the time. When we go to Tennessee, they don't treat it as a big game. Or we go to Ole Miss, they don't. I kind of think our fan base maybe a little bit. I don't know, though. They could surprise us. And,
I think if it was a night game, did you think if it was a night game, would there be a higher attendance?
Well,
I think
this is a night game.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking North Texas there for a minute. To me, I think it could push 40.
There'll be more people because we haven't tailgated in a long time. And there'll be more people who want to go and tailgate and do that because there'll be a lot of people. As you guys know, and people that tailgate know that it's like a little family, right? And you don't see them except during the games. And so the first game is usually you'll have more people that want to go just to sort of do that. And so I think you'll get a little boost of attendance. I think Jeb's absolutely right when he says I think the parking is an issue, and it is a big issue. And I'm not going to lie, it is a big issue, and people that haven't been over there yet don't really know what they're in for.
Well, I still haven't figured out how to download my parking pass, for crying out loud. I frankly, I haven't, spent any time on it, but I haven't figured out how to download my media pass yet because even the media now is going through this digital ticketing. So I would just ask everybody that's going to the game, when you're packing up your tailgate gear, leave kind of a little corner for some patience because this is a new system for them, although I don't know if they used it last week or not at the Southern Heritage Classic. 52,000 people. Great atmosphere last week for the Classic, as always. Unfortunately, it's probably the last time we'll see that kind of attendance. But I don't know if they used this system for last week, but just please, this is a new system for everybody. For those who don't know, there are no printed tickets, no printed parking passes. Everything's digital. You'll have a QR code that gets scanned. And guys, I don't know how it's going to work either. because the blue lot, you have the Holland 100 lot and you have the regular blue lot, and are they going to be scanning at every entry point, and how's that going to work? But I would just encourage people to just be patient. Don't wait until 4:45 to leave your house to go park for the game. Give yourself some grace. Don't wait until 5:55 to walk up to the stadium and then be mad because you missed the first quarter. Just patience and grace. And I'm saying that for me as much as I am for everybody else, because I'm not, my name is not Job. For those who know me, I don't have that kind of patience. But just everybody pack some patience for Saturday, and we'll get through it, and we're going to have a good time. It's we're celebrating the 901. I'm announcing for the band this year, and I can tell you they're going to have a very entertaining show at halftime. I'm looking forward to actually seeing it in full on Saturday or on Friday. I'm going to go to practice, and there's a very, very special and unique thing that they're going to do towards the end of their performance. I'm not going to give it away, but it's definitely worth at least going for the band and watching the band perform. They've got something really special lined up for the end. But that's going to do it for us. For the best co-hosts in all the land, Brian Moss and Larry Marley, thanks to Luke Matheson from Red Wolf Report for joining us. And until next week, we will see everybody on Tigers Tonight. Thanks for tuning in.